Hello guys, good afternoon and welcome back to another exciting video of my Doctor Who marathon. Today's video is a top 10. Maybe thinking, what top 10 could it be? Well, I'll tell you now. Today I'm going to be doing my top 10 1960s stories to conclude and finish off the 1960s of my Doctor Who marathon. Since we are coming to the end of the 1960s decade, we're closing that gap and we're going to be opening up a new gap of the 1970s. But before we can move on to the 1970s in Doctor Who, we've got to do this video. And this video is a top 10 of my personal all-time favourites 1960s stories in my collection. Now, to tell you the truth, before we get started, stories that I've watched and reviewed will be included in this top 10 list, but stories that have been watched but haven't been reviewed will not be in this list. So I must need to watch it and review it in order for it to be on the list. But there's one or two surprises within there, here and there, but I hope you enjoy this top 10 list. And please tell me in the comments down below, what's your top 10 list of your 1960s stories? Personally, I will agree and, like all of your opinions. So please get commenting down below. And so, without further ado, let's begin this top 10 list on my top 10 1960s stories of all time. So without further ado, let's begin with number 10. Coming in at number 10, we have The Mind Robber. Such a really great story, I have to say. I wasn't even initially planning to do a review on The Mind Robber, but as I said in the review. Anyway, for all the stories that I do from number 10 all the way down to number 1, I'll put links in the description down below for the reviews. And so if you want to go and check out any of those reviews for any of my top spots, then please do right away. So, The Mind Robber, I would have to say, is a real brilliant, enjoying, fun story. I wouldn't say it's very serious. I would say it's bringing fiction to life, and that's what I like. And I was very intrigued of how fiction can be, so realistic and how you can make it so real. They literally did so many effects, and I think the effects in this were absolutely brilliant. Although it could have been quite psychedelic, I know, but honestly, I really do like The Mind Robber. So silly, but yet fun and enjoying. I really felt that many of the stories that Patterson did were always quite serious, but this was one of his light-hearted stories, which I personally quite like. And I do give it a 9.4 out of 10, which beats the story which was actually going to take the number 10 spot, which was actually To Seize a Death. But unfortunately, I felt a bit more enjoying, a bit more fun within this story. So effective, although it may be, very theatrical, bringing fiction to life, but it is such an effective story. And I just really like The Mind Robber so much. And it is just one of those stories which now, has changed my mind and changed my opinions on what I think about science fiction. It's just really brought the science fiction element and the fictional, characters to life. And I thought it was really, really great. And Peter Ling, the writer, did a really great job on this. And so, yeah, that was number 10, The Mind Robber. A really great story. And so, let's move on to number 9. Number 9, this is a story which many people have mixed opinions about. Is it great? Is it great? Is it great or is it not great? But at number 9, it is The Dalek Invasion of Earth. Honestly, many people say that The Dalek Invasion of Earth is really overrated. However, I don't. I really think that this is one of those stories which many people have mixed opinions on. Because Peter Capaldi, although you've heard the news about Peter Capaldi leaving in that other video that I did quite recently, you automatically know that he's going to be leaving Doctor Who. And speaking of Peter Capaldi, this was his childhood favourite story. And if Peter Capaldi likes it, then so do I. Then I think it's just really fantastic. I'm not just basically agreeing with Peter Capaldi. I've watched it and reviewed this story, and I think it's really, really great. I think it's an iconic and very childhood favourite of many people's. And to be honest, I really like how they did so much, including the Daleks within the whole set of London. Imagine if how they got, you know, all those people out of London to make it so abandoned so they could use that filming setting for London to go roaming around with all the Daleks in London. So it was quite great. I really believe that this is one of those stories that many people do say it's very overrated. There are loads of mistakes in it, very many flaws, but just watching the story just made me feel like that. I'm going back in time of where the Daleks are trying to invade Earth, and from my experience, I really enjoyed the story. I think there was a good direction involved. I think there was some good writing by Terry Nation. I think most of the episodes were quite disturbing and quite creepy sometimes. And then overall, the Daleks were, you know, at their best in this. I believe so. So I would have to give the Dalek Invasion of Earth a 9.5 out of 10, just beating the Mind Robber. But I had to include a William Hartnell story in this top 10 list. Otherwise, it would have been unfair. But I do have very few William Hartnells, but this is one of, you know, William Hartnell's best iconic stories, and I personally like it. It is really great. Alright, so that was number 9, The Dalek Invasion of Earth. Now for number 8. Coming in at number 8, and it is The Invasion. Another story which I have to say has a great reputation for. Tobias Vaughan, serious and such power-hungry, so very corrupted character. He's so brilliant, and Kevin Stoney, the actor who plays Tobias Vaughan, and also Marvek Chenin in Daleks Master Plan, he's just absolutely sensational. Such a brilliant, sensational actor. He can play such a really diverse and very corrupted villain and dictator in any sort of story, and he's so power hungry within the entire story. Destined for power, destined for glory, to rule the entire world. And this is what I believed in his character. He really wanted power, power hungry, corrupted, such full of evil and world domination in his mind. He really felt as a posh dictator, but was very calm and very comfortable in his manner, but had a very serious and very corrupted side of him, which I absolutely loved. And then we also got introduced to Unit and also Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart as well. So I have to say that this story was really great for Unit to get involved in, because if Unit didn't get involved, then I have no idea how the Doctor would have succeeded in stopping Tobias Vaughan with the Cybermen. So good on Unit to get involved in this story, because I really think that the Doctor really needed some friends to help him out, and I think Unit were the people to help him out. Just a really great highlight story for Units. And also the Cybermen. I think the Cybermen are really, really fantastic in this. Although they may take quite a while to get into the story, I personally think that they're really good. And also the animation as well. Really great animation, I have to say. And then, yeah, the Cybermen just brilliant. I think there was so many great cliffhangers, especially in episode 6 when the Cybermen are coming out from the sewers and invading London. Such iconic. That is such an iconic cliffhanger, and many people really class it as the most epic story, you know, in Patrick era. I would have to agree on that. It's really one of the best, you know, epic stories ever. But there's also many other stories which are more epic than this. But I have to say, for rating, a 9.7 out of 10, because it's just really fantastic. And I have to say there's loads of dark, serious and very mysterious scenes which I find it quite creepy. And I think the whole dark story is just so dark and sinister, and I absolutely love it. And I think Tobias Vaughan, world-class actor, brilliant, and also one of the best characters in Doctor Who history. Really brilliant. Tobias Vaughan, sinister as ever. Can't get much sinister than Tobias Vaughan. So that was number 8, The Invasion. Now, let's move on to number 7. Coming in at number 7 is another iconic and very childhood favourite to many people. Now this is the story which I would have to class as a classic story, and it is The Tomb of the Cybermen. The 1960s Cybermen were the best Cybermen in my opinion, because they really stuck to their roots of sticking to the shadows, being quite creepy and having that creepy, sinister factor, whereas with the 70s and 80s Cybermen, they have more armies and they didn't really become much of a threat. But with the 1960s Cybermen, I can really feel like how intimidating and how creepy their actions were in any sort of story. And this is one of their classic examples of how scary and how sinister the Cybermen really are. This is just really a fantastic childhood story, and one of the most iconic Doctor Who stories of all time. So much terror, so much darkness, just really fantastic, you know, atmospheric content with the entire story. I think Pagatron's really good in this, and I really like the scene of where Victoria and the Doctor were having their little moment together in episode 3. Really got to the heart of Doctor Who fans, and really made the whole show a really emotional show, and actually really cared about the people's hearts, and so that was a great moment. And yeah, the Cybermen, sinister as ever, you can never know what's going to happen. And also I feel that the whole atmosphere around Entombed Cybermen feels like that it's so isolated, and if you're completely have a fear of, you know, being trapped in one specific location, you get quite, you know, panicking, you get quite nervous and very agitated. And this is what the feeling felt like when watching Tomb of the Cybermen. So many fears of being isolated, trapped in one single centre, and this was literally a really scary story for many people. And although it didn't get the reputation as it did back when it was found, but now it has a tremendous big reputation, and many people really class it as a classic story in their eyes. And I have to say that with Tomb of the Cybermen, I would have to say it is a real great classic example. Cybermen are fantastic, and I think the whole characters that sometimes I think most of the other characters in the story, they're quite horrible, very power hungry, very corrupted. They want Cybermen to help them with their plans, but as the one lesson we learn in this story, you can't trust the Cybermen whatsoever, because they'll turn your back on you and they will completely convert you and destroy you. Simple as that. That's how deadly and how sinister the Cybermen are. And really, to puny, you know, pathetic human minds, you cannot let the Cybermen help you. They won't help you. They will completely convert you. So that's number 7, Tomb of the Cybermen, a classic example of a really iconic and very well loved story. My rating, 9.8 out of 10. Really a fantastic story, just truly unbelievable. So yeah, Tomb of the Cybermen, 9.8 out of 10. So that was number 7, Tomb of the Cybermen. Now let's move on to number 6. Number 6, we have another great, well popular, really has a great reputation for many people, and when this was released, many people really enjoy this story so much, and it's gone higher and higher in the ranks of their all-time favourite stories, and it is The Web of Fear. So much black and white base under siege goodness can you get without this story. This is just truly a gem of base under siege goodness in black and white. This is the one thing I quite like about having black and white TV, and stories like The Web of Fear create such an isolated and impactful, you know, setting, and it creates so much danger, so much darkness and terror within this story. So much mystery, so much darkness. I absolutely love it. It's just really fantastic Doctor Who in this. And the Yeti especially, creepy as ever. If you get trapped with a Yeti, you know you're in danger for once. And so yeah, the Yeti, The Web of Fear is just brilliant. I'll just have to say that Travis, I really like his bold and arrogance about him. And then I've got Pagatron, who has like a great way of thinking, but sometimes whenever things don't go quite his way, he doesn't really feel like that. He's not done his best, really, in the ending 6th episode of The Web of Fear. Not everything goes according to his way, and he wants everything to go his way, but sometimes things just happen, really, and he just becomes a bit frustrated when things don't go his way. So that was the thing I quite liked in this. And also I quite liked Pagatron's very seriousness and his adapting to the entire situation of how the Yetis are coming, they're coming for Travis, they want the Doctor's mind. And so yeah, the Doctor becomes really serious and gets quite aware of what's going on in the situation. And I think episode 4 is the fight scene. It's just absolutely tremendous. If we lost episode 4, this story would have not had the potential and the popularity it has today, because the fight scene really needed the visuals to bring it out to become one of the most popular Doctor Who stories of all time. And so the fight scene was really necessary and really got the whole story engaging with a lot of action and a lot of terror and a lot of good, based on the siege goodness. I just absolutely love it. Black and white TV just really sets the bar really high for these types of stories. Really fantastic. And I have to give it a 9.9 out of 10 because it's just truly, truly unbelievable. and also the dark and truly mystery of who's working for the intelligence really creates the bottom line. You can pick out any sort of character and you can almost identify on who's working with the intelligence. So it's really a great mystery story as well, and I think it's just really a classic example of how Based on the Siege goodness really gets to Doctor Who fans. This is a classic example, and I have to say, it is a classic story to many people's eyes, and to my eyes, a really brilliant, unbelievable Based on the Siege goodness story. Just really tremendous work. And so that was number 6, The Web of Fear. Now we're moving on to the 5 more stories, and now at these 5 stories, they're all rated out of 10. So, coming in at number 5. Coming in at number 5, now as I was speaking again about black and white Cybermen looming around in the shadows, this is another classic example, and it is my favourite Cyberman story from the 1960s. And to be honest with you, the review said itself. The link is in the description down below. But if you check out that review, you probably know that this is my all-time favourite Cyberman story from the 1960s. And it is The Moonbase. Truly the most best story that I've seen with the Cybermen for a long time. The Moonbase. When I picked this DVD up, I wasn't even too sure what the story was about. I didn't even watch it. I thought it was going to be so boring. But then when I got the chance to watch it, oh my gosh, was I wrong at that time. This is just truly one of the best stories to include the Cybermen. So dark and so sinister. They keep towards the shadows and they become quite secretive within their movements. They move very quietly, so you can't suspect anything. But the Cybermen, they really stick to their roots. They stick to the shadows, become quite creepy, very sinister and very malicious and intimidating towards the crew. I think it's just really sensational. And I think the entire setting on the moon is really great as well. And I really like episode 4 for just having all that kind of army and, you know, walking to the moon base and having such, you know, quite powerful scenes such as like the Cybermen walking towards the patients with like their intimidating look in episode 1 and 2. I think episode 1 and 2 are the most 2 creepiest stories to include the Cybermen, because you can hardly suspect the Cybermen or where they are. You can see shadows of them, you can see little, you know, flexes of arm or leg movements, but yet so you can still not see their faces at all. They're so secretive, hiding within the shadows, making themselves so hidden without, you know, the crew seeing them, and they become such an intimidating, sinister threat. And this is what reason why I love the Moonbase so much. Moonbase is such a classic example for many fans. For Cybermen, this is the best Cyberman story I had to say is out there. With all the other Cyberman stories, this is up there with my personal number 1 all-time Cyberman stories. This is the number 1 for the best Cyberman story. So yes, that was The Moonbase at number 5. Really, truly a tremendous story, and I absolutely love this story to absolute bits. And if you really want to see my reaction to The Moonbase, then check out the review on it. It is just truly tremendous. But I have to say that The Moonbase really comes close to many other stories. But this one is just truly of why I like the 1960s Cybermen so much. They become so dark, have that intimidating and creepy factor. Whereas with the 1970s and 80s Cybermen, they have more of an army and have that army factor. Not that's the creepy side factor. But with the 1960s, I think they're better with the more creepy and sinister factor. But this is the classic example and the best example to show you how deadly and how secretive the Cybermen really are. Just really fantastic. And so, without further ado guys, let's move on to number 4. Coming in at number 4, now I have to say this straight out to you guys, this is my favourite William Hartnell story of all time. And if you haven't seen the review on it, then please do check it out. And it is the Aztecs. I could go in so much in depth with the Aztecs, but all the in-depth content is in with the review, so do check it out. But the Aztecs, if I had to describe it in one full go, I would have to say truly fascinating, really good, because I didn't know much anything about the Aztecs, but when I watched this, my gosh, so much a history lesson about the Aztec history and how they committed sacrifices to help the gods to make it rain. And just, I really loved how this story really adapted to the meaning that you cannot rewrite history, not one line. That's my favourite quote I love about this, because it really proved the point that you can't change anything about the past, but you can change the future though. So this is just one thing I love about this entire story. It really goes all around the entire history, and about history that you can't change it. And the Aztec history as well, really fascinating, truly mind-blowing history. And I absolutely love the acting and quality acting, and the direction of it is just brilliant, fantastic. Just really one of the best historicals that I've ever seen in my Doctor Who collection, and the best story that I've ever seen, including so much historical content. It's just really great for any historical story. So definitely, the Aztecs wins it over me. A 10 out of 10 rating, and also, I didn't mention the Moonbase as well, also got a 10 out of 10. But again, the Aztecs, 10 out of 10 rates for me. My favourite historical story, and my favourite William Hartnell story of all time. So I have to say that that really is the best historical story that I've ever seen from William Hartnell. He's at his best in it. He's really self-centered around the Aztec history, very fascinated. Ian's really great with the fight scenes. Barbara, very content and very calm when talking to the butcher and also the other people as well who's serving her, and she feels quite in control of being the Aztec goddess. And so that's what I really like about all these other characters. And I think the butcher's very, very threatening. He's just absolutely a monster, hideous and very malicious villain. I just absolutely love his character, and I think all the characters in this definitely deserve a play within this story. I think it's absolutely a tremendous story. Definitely one of the best to provide so much great historical content in Doctor Who history. John Ludacris is a brilliant writer for any sort of brilliant historical writer. He's just really great at writing so much great historical stories. Fantastic. Anyway, that was number 4, the Aztecs. Now let's move on to number 3. At number 3, we have one of these stories which I have to say that I was honestly pumped for so long, and it was the first video that I ever did for 2017. You know it all. And it is The Enemy of the World. I have to say, I have one pretty good reason why I prefer this story over the Web of Fear in my rankings. Patrick Owen is one of my favourite actors of all time, and I can really see how he's such a versatile actor in this. There's no aliens about, no mysterious planets. This is just about him trying to capture the eye of Salamander, and he's literally playing 3 roles in this. Patrick Owen is. He's playing the Doctor, very light-hearted, a very kind and generous, loving Doctor that we know, and then he's playing Salamander, very evil, corrupted, power-hungry villain, and then you've got the Doctor pretending to be Salamander, who yet captures the eyes in Salamander, and yet so stutters within his lines and gets quite nervous when talking to threatening, intimidating characters. But this is such a tremendous story, and I completely keep saying about this is one of the most underrated stories of all time. Many people thought it was really underrated, and many people really felt that The Enemy of the World was just so unappreciated. But now, looking at it now, it's just truly the best story that I've ever seen, including Identity Crisis, and it's just really fantastic. If you like James Bond, then you'll certainly love this, because it's just truly unbelievable. The characters are fantastic, the villains definitely Giles, Kent, Salamander. You could say that Patrick Owen is such a versatile actor, and he is just ultimately one of the best, characters and best actors to play such a role as Salamander, and catches the eyes of, the Doctor and also Salamander as well. So there's loads of versatile acting within Salamander and the Doctor pretending to be Salamander, so there's quite a lot of jobs for Patrick Owen to do. But I think the entire story is completely well written and well directed. Barry Letts did a fantastic job on directing this, just brilliant. And even so, I think Barry Letts is better as a director rather than a producer, in my opinion. But I think David Whittaker's writing is just so strong, so powerful. He can adapt anything into any sort of story, and he's just truly brilliant when it comes to his stories. He's just absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, with this story, 10 out of 10 rating for me. If you want to see the in-depth review on the Enemy of the World, then please do check it out. But please do check out all the other reviews for all of these stories. Please do, because you're missing out big time with the Enemy of the World, because this is one of my personal ultimate favourites in Patatron's era. Really one of my guilty pleasures of all time. Really fantastic. So that was number 3, the Enemy of the World. Now we're moving on to number 2. Now many people are going to be shocked about this. And now, how did you get this on the list? I have reviewed this and I've watched it, and I can tell you that this story has just been released quite recently. You know what I mean? It is The Power of the Daleks. You may be thinking, what the hell am I holding in my hand right now? These are just some art cards that I just got from the BBC store, from The Power of the Daleks, since I bought it from the BBC store. And I have all of these art cards, including pictures from like Patrick Troughton, the animation tests, Daleks blowing up. So yeah, I have to say that The Power of the Daleks, as I've watched it and I've reviewed it as well, I have to say that The Power of the Daleks is one of those stories which I've now got into, and it's been so brilliant for me just to watch a lost classic story. And I have to introduce this because this is not a lost classic story anymore. It is a found classic story, and I just have to put this on my second spot because it is just truly tremendous. And the amount of effort went into this, of animating this entire story from episode 1 to episode 6. Truly magnificent work. And I think the animation is completely up there with the Moonbase animation. But I think the Moonbase animation is also great. But I think the animation in this is truly well beyond that. I have to say that The Power of the Daleks is just truly one of the best stories that I've ever seen in 2016. And for the action in it, the entire story, the Daleks very sinister, always as deadly as ever. They can contradict anything. And just love the scenes in this, the cliffhangers, the mystery, the danger, the terror. I love it. It's absolutely brilliant. And also I love the Daleks, of where the Daleks was actually, you know, talking to Patatron like, I am your servant. I am your servant. It's just so powerful, and just the acting with the Daleks and all of the characters in this. And we get to see Patatron's seriousness for the first time. Even though it's his first story, we get to see that he's so sinister, yet not the clown as well. But we get to see his serious side as the Doctor. This is the truly, you know, personality that we know and love the Doctor for so much. He's so serious when it comes to Daleks, and he's completely control in the entire situation. Being an examiner, he's very sneaky and very, you know, quite, you know, secretive of his likes and his thinking, but he is just truly serious in whatever way he is. He's very cautious, he's sometimes quite worried, but again, always has the recording in his, you know, recorder in his hand, making him quite, you know, comedic and quite, you know, clownish as well. But for his first story, and to be animated as well, the Daleks in this are just truly fantastic, and the entire story, I absolutely love it to bits. And ever since it got released, I was so pumped for it. I was so excited to watch it. My gosh, what a wait it has been for Power of the Daleks. But we can now say that the Power of the Daleks is no longer lost, and it is found, and it is at number 2 in my top 10 1960s stories. So definitely a 10 out of 10 rating for me. Absolutely. Really, the Power of the Daleks is just truly unbelievable. And so, with number 2, the Power of the Daleks, now let's move on to the final number 1. And at number 1, we all know what number 1 is because I did my review quite recently ago. And it is the War Games, the magnificent, tremendous 10-part epic thriller story. That is the War Games. I could literally talk so much about the War Games, but I have to say that the War Games is just truly tremendous for all of its work, and the writing, the scripting, the direction, the characters. Oh my gosh, if you definitely really want an in-depth review on this, then please go away and check it out for yourself, because I think I've said enough about the War Games already but in that previous review. So please do check out my in-depth review on the War Games, because you'll absolutely love it to bits. So please do. Anyway, that really concludes this top 10 list and really concludes the 1960s to a complete end. But The War Games is my top one. It is my number one 1960s story of all time. It is just truly tremendous. 10 parts of absolute brilliant character development, action, history content, so many history lessons throughout this. It is just brilliant Doctor Who, and Terrence Dicks and Malcolm Hulke, truly the geniuses behind this entire story. I just have to say, one word about this story, absolutely phenomenal. Just really the most best Doctor Who story to end Patatron's era with a bang. And so funny enough, number 2 was actually Patatron's first story, and at number 1, Patatron's last story. Who knew about that? So anyway guys, that concludes the top 10 1960s stories of all time to end off my Doctor Who marathon for the 1960s. I hope you have enjoyed it. Please do give a like, but also comment your views on your top 10 list, and also please do respect my opinion because I will respect yours. And so guys, thank you for watching, and also remember, please do subscribe to my channel if you are new, because I've just been getting so excited to do the 1970s. But yes, we are finally now ready to move on to the 1970s and to start off my Doctor Who marathon once again with the 1970s. And so guys, thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed these past couple of reviews on the 1960s stories for many of my top 10 lists. The Enemy of the World, Web of Fear, you name it. So please go and watch those reviews because they are absolutely brilliant and they're from the heart. And I do these reviews with heart and soul, and I really do have to say, thank you guys for watching, keep up with the support, and I'll see you guys for another Doctor Who review, which will be the 1970s story, Spearhead from Space, to start off the 1970s. Thank you for watching guys, and I'll see you guys very soon for the first story of John Pertwee's era, Spearhead from Space. See you guys later.